Chapter 3. When Chaya awoke the next morning, Father was already gone. Something big had to be going on. Auntie was sitting by the breakfast table, mending one of Chaya's skirts. "Oh, you must be more careful, Chaya," she said, glancing up from her sewing. "All this running around like a boy. This is the third skirt I've had to mend this week. Are you playing with those good-for-nothing boys at the river again?" "Oh, once in a while, yes. Nothing wrong with them." Chaya sat down and opened a dish on the table. Steam rose from the chunks of freshly boiled sweet potato. She helped herself to some with some grated coconut. "Father's left early? Oh, there's trouble brewing right here in Nerissa. Did you hear about the robbery at the palace?" Chaya nodded, taking a bite of her sweet potato. "Oh, I heard things were pretty bad last night. And the king is furious and he's taking it out on the people, as usual." Auntie pulled a needle out and snapped the thread between her teeth. "Whoever stole those jewels, it's a death sentence, if you ask me." The food went floury and heavy in Chaya's mouth, and she had difficulty swallowing. She stared out of the window. Sunshine dappled the lawn under the neem tree, where the mongoose slunk across the grass. Who are they looking for? Do they have a description or something?" "Oh, it's strange, but nobody's sure." Auntie crinkled her brow as she folded up the skirt on her lap. "Some people mention a dark, greedy boy. Some say he was plump and ran with a limp." The two boys stealing the rice cakes. They'd run away too, and each might have been mistaken as a jewel thief. Well, a guard at the palace has even got it into his head that it was a girl, around 12 years old, medium brown complexion, hair in a long plait. Tall. Oh. Chaya studied her mottled reflection on the panelling of the window. "Well, that could be anyone, and even me, for example." Auntie laughed. "True. Nobody believes him, of course. A girl." "What's the trouble they're expecting today, then, Auntie?" "General Siri and his men have been marching through the surrounding villages, trying to persuade people to give up the thief. This morning it's our turn, unfortunately." Chaya blanched at the sound of General Siri's persuading. How long are they going to do that for?" "No one confesses, they'll have to give up, surely." "Give up? The king has enemies who'd be glad to see him toppled. Do you know how paranoid he is about his position? This is huge, someone getting into the palace like that. He's not going to let it go." Chaya's mouth suddenly felt parched. She poured out a tumbler of water from the clay pitcher. "What's the matter?" said Auntie. "Aren't you eating?" Chaya looked down. The sight of food made her feel sick. "I'm just not hungry." She pushed her plate away. Auntie tutted but said nothing. I should get going," Chaya said. "Chaya, you hardly eat and there's still time before school. Finish your breakfast." I think I want to go and see Neil first." She got up and swung her satchel onto her shoulder. "That boy Neelan, doesn't he have enough work to do without you always dropping in? My brother spoils you, letting you run around like a wild thing. Other girls of 12 have been stopped going to school by now." "Oh, see you later, Auntie." Chaya hurried past before she could say more, and hot-footed it out of the house. Something was wrong in Nerissa. Where was everyone? The lanes were quiet as Chaya made her way to the workshop. No sounds of brooms sweeping out the front yards, no metal buckets clanking in the wells or the gush of water pouring over bathers. Shouts echoed in the distance. Chaya ran down the pebbly path towards them, her satchel slapping against her leg. A dense knot of people blocked the view. Chaya pushed her way to the front. The king's men were there. They were outside one of the little houses. The front door was open and the family's possessions had been thrown outside. Chaya recognised the house. It was Bala's from school. The soldiers tossed a small sack of rice out of the house, spilling the contents on the ground over a heap of reed mats, pillows and clothes spotted with lentils. A woman threw herself on the rice, sobbing, and tried to scoop it up with her hands. Oh no, this couldn't be happening. General Siri was standing by his horse, dressed in his high-shouldered purple jacket, an embossed leather dagger sheath strung at his side. Father was next to him, and they seemed to be arguing. Father jabbing his arm towards Bala's house. General Siri turned aside and turned away. "You'll all be next, all of you, unless you'll give up the thief." A whisper passed through the mass of people, and Chaya slipped away. Out of sight of the villagers and Father and Bala's family in pain, she leaned against the wattled door wall, grinding her head into its roughness. All this suffering in the village, and it was her fault. A boy's voice screamed, "It wasn't me! It really wasn't!" She squeezed her eyes shut, blocking out the sound of Bala's screaming. She wiped the sweat off her face. She had to do something. There was a movement in front of her. A small girl was studying Chaya, thumb in mouth. It was Bala's little sister. "I'm sorry," Chaya whispered. "I'm so sorry. I'll put it right, I promise." The child glanced around, wondering if Chaya was talking to her. She stumbled away from the noise and the crowds towards the edge of the village. She broke away into a run and bolted down the paths, branches scraping at her arms and snagging at her skirt. She couldn't let this happen. It had to stop. She flew out of the village and through the paddy fields. Up ahead she could see movement inside the workshop. Neil was there already. "Neil!" Chaya shouted as she sprinted up. "Neil! I have to give them back!" She held her aching side and halted at the doorway, Puddle doubled up and panting. Neil was standing there stiffly, glaring at her. There were people in the workshop, customers. Neil's master, Kumar, the carpenter, was with them. He turned to Chaya, frowning slightly, before going back to his customers. They were a finely dressed merchant and a girl around Chaya's age, probably his daughter. Chaya gawped at their flowing silken clothes. "Oh, it is so perfect," said the merchant, bending over a small cabinet. He spoke his words slowly, Chaya's language sounding strange in his tongue. Chaya turned back to Neil. There were beads of sweat on his forehead. "What's wrong?" she mouthed. Neil's eyes darted to the girl. "I'll bring it to you as soon as it's done," said the carpenter. "I'm glad you're satisfied with how it's going." The merchant smiled. Thankfully, it looked like they were leaving. Then the girl turned round. She was carrying something in her hands. Chaya gasped. She clutched Neil, whose arm was hot and clammy. "We'll take this," said the girl. She held up a box. It was carved with a two-headed bird carrying a snake in its claws.